It's a teacher's worst nightmare. You have a mix of students creating a litany of problems that make you want to quit your job. And while there's no getting around the fact that misbehaviors will arise, there is good news, and that is it doesn't have to derail your year, because there are things that you can do to create an overwhelmingly positive environment in your classroom. And this brings me to a question. What do I do to ensure that managing student misbehavior is only a small portion of what I do in the classroom? In this video, I'm going to give you 7 tips that you can do to make sure your classroom is a wildly positive place for you and your students. And I'll break these tips into 2 categories: prevention and intervention. First, create a joyful environment. Think about Disneyland. They call it the happiest place on earth because people there are happy. And because people are happy, very rarely do you see an outburst of misbehavior in one of their parks. Contrast this with the DMV. Nearly every time I go to the DMV, there's somebody making a scene because they're upset about something. And the truth is, Disneyland directs a lot of thought into creating an environment where people feel a sense of joy. At the DMV, it's just brass tacks. Now I know these are extreme examples on a wide spectrum, but the truth of the matter is, somewhere on this spectrum, your classroom falls. By creating and cultivating a sense of joy in your classroom, you'll be moving your students along the spectrum in a positive way and creating an environment where misbehavior is less likely to occur. Now you may be asking yourself, how do I do this? To start, you want to tap into your students' senses. Think about how a student experiences your classroom through their senses. What does the room communicate? Now this doesn't mean that you need to have an interior decorator. I had a teacher once who had a wall dedicated to her hero, Rod Stewart. And I never understood her obsession, but every time I came across Rod Stewart, I thought of her. And by sharing her unique passion, she sent a clear message to all of us that this space was a space where it was safe to share their own interests too. Whether it's a quirky display or a polished aesthetic, the look of your room tells the students something about you, even if unintentionally. Aim to reflect the environment that you want to create. Even more importantly, think about what your students hear. How do you speak? What's your tone, your vibe, your energy? What type of communication do you allow in your room? Are you projecting joy, enthusiasm, and positivity? Or do you sound disinterested and out of touch with your students' culture? Whether fair or unfair, students will distill their experience of your class into an overall vibe, which will shape how they feel and in turn how they act in your room. So craft a vibe into one that they want to learn from. Next, always come prepared. Harry Wong wrote in his book, The First Days of School, effective teachers manage their classrooms and ineffective teachers discipline their classrooms. By managing, he meant effective teachers have structures in place to give students a consistent, predictable environment that they can grow within. Some people wonder if structuring a classroom will push back against the sense of joy, but the truth is that nothing will send a classroom into orbit faster than an ill-prepared teacher. A tight lesson plan with multiple engaging activities aimed at an objective, combined with clear procedures for when students misbehave and procedures for the logistics that happen every day in your class, is your best shot at a smooth functioning class. It will not only help kids learn more, it'll create a classroom that is so efficient that there will actually be more space for joy and fun and relationship building to occur. Relationships don't thrive in chaotic environments. Relationships thrive the most in environments where teachers are not pulling their hair out. And this brings me to the next point. One of the most important things that you can do to prevent misbehaviors is to build relationships with your students. A relationship garners grace from your students when things don't go well. Watch the scene where Ron Clark makes a deposit with this student he's meeting for the first time.
Hi. What happened to you?
Teacher says I can't learn, so I should go with the trash.
Okay, settle down. Let's get out our silent reading.
I'm Mr. Clark. What's your name?
Hadley Craig.
Nice to meet you. I'm so sorry. I'm so forgetful. What's my name again?
It's Mr. Clark.
Oh, see? You just learned something. Let's get you out of there.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah.
Is you gonna be our new teacher?
Ellen, no whispering.
Now, tell me that student isn't going to be willing to go the distance with Mr. Clark's lead. In a lot of ways, student-teacher relationships parallel banking principles. You can only make withdrawals from an account where you've made deposits into. In some accounts, they'll allow you to overdraw it, but it's going to cost you a penalty fee and you'll be operating from a deficit. In the same way, your relationships with students are like this. Every interaction you have with a student, whether personally or as a group, is an opportunity for a deposit into that student. The currency isn't money though. It's largely positivity, genuine interest, and respect. When you give this freely, it fills their accounts and those deposits will be there for you when you need to make a withdrawal, which often comes in the form of corrections, reprimands, or times when you make mistakes. Oftentimes, you'll make a withdrawal from a student you've built no relationship with, and there is no deposits there. And you can do that, but it'll cost you a penalty, and you'll be operating from a deficit with that student until you can begin to build the relationship back into the positives. Sadly, some teachers operate from a deficit all year long because they've started making withdrawals before ever making a deposit into their students. And whether fair or not, it makes their entire year worse. Compare the earlier Mr. Clark clip with the first impressions with this Mr. Clark, the Principal Clark.
What's your name, son?
Sams, Thomas Sams.
Thomas Sams. You're a freshman?
Yes, sir.
Cutting class and smoking crack, Mr. Sams? There's no mistake.
No, sir. It wasn't me, sir. I swear it wasn't.
It wasn't you, huh?
No.
You think I'm stupid, son?
No, sir.
You're trying to con a con man. You come with me.
The connection is obvious. In today's world, ask yourself, who's building a stronger foundation for success in a classroom? Now, all of these strategies don't mean that there will never be any behavioral issues in your classroom, but it will help you move your classroom further along the DMV Disney spectrum. It's important to note that all the strategies that I've talked about so far are preventative, but what do you do when misbehavior does happen? And how do you move from preventative strategies to intervention strategies? Well, there's a few important strategies I want you to know about. First, avoid power struggles. Remember, when it comes to correcting students' behaviors, you want to utilize the least intrusive intervention that allows you to get what you want while maintaining your authority in the classroom. Why the least intrusive? Well, this is because you are joined at the hip with your student for the entire year. And you can dig in your heels and draw hard lines, win the argument, and get your pound of flesh. But come Monday, you'll also learn that you've just ensured that the rest of your year between you and that student is characterized by animosity. If you approach correction by utilizing the least intrusive approach, you preserve your previous investments with that student in their account. You want to pay the lowest price possible to get the behavior that you want from that student and preserve those deposits. So don't unnecessarily empty the account by engaging in a power struggle. If you find yourself in a power struggle, you've already lost. Another tool that's in your kit is to approach correction with joy. When you approach a conversation with positive energy, it's like a magnet. People naturally want to match that vibe. It's hard to stay combative when someone greets you with joy. And on top of that, it rarely hurts to assume the best about a student's intentions. Most kids, not all, but most kids don't come to class planning to misbehave. When you approach misbehavior with the assumption that there's more to the story, maybe something you don't know, you give the student the chance to correct their behavior without feeling attacked by you. Even if you do know the full story, sometimes it's worth playing off that you don't. This lets you address the issue, get the behavior you want while keeping the student on your side. Finally, wherever possible, when you find yourself in a situation that has the potential to escalate into a power struggle, look to reframe the conversation by offering choice. As a teacher, the cell phone battle was a tough one for me. When it came time for a student to give up their cell phone, the situation was always ripe for a power struggle. However, rather than framing it in the conversation like, hey, give me the phone or else, I always try to look to reframe the conversation by saying, hey, Johnny, you've had your phone out already once today and now you know the rules. But I'm going to give you a chance to shoot a shot on my Nerf basketball hoop. And if you can make it from this mark that I set, you can keep your phone, but it needs to go into your backpack. But if you miss it, I get your phone for the duration of class. Now here's the thing, 100% of the students took the bait. And the other thing was, the hoop was like a circus game. Nobody can make a shot. But by reframing the situation, I was able to virtually always get that phone, laugh about their missed shot, preserve the relationship, and hold the standard in my class. Even if they did make the shot, which was very rare, the phone was still put away and the standard was held. Finally, there will come times when a student is seemingly determined to pull you into deep waters. And for these situations, it's important to know the supports behind you at your school. Oftentimes, you may feel like you're being dragged into murky waters with a student. Don't allow yourself to go there. Preserve your dignity by leaning on the school's student management systems. In situations like these, where you can feel like it's escalating beyond your comfort zone, be sure to share the situation with the office team that's working on your behalf. They won't have witnessed the situation unfold in your classroom, so it's up to you to make sure they understand what happened, or they'll only rely on the perspective of the student, which may or may not be accurate. But by doing these things, both the preventative strategies and the intervention strategies, you'll be able to preserve the relationship with your students, get the behavior that you want to see, and create a wildly positive environment in your classroom.